Welcome back to the Husky
Sorry
Women's
to
Hoop
start.
Show. We haven't talked since before they went to the tournament. They went
Is that
and
true?
we didn't do a show after they lost to Columbia.
Oh, I thought we did. Well, maybe
Nope.
we were I thought too.
Mm.
so too.
Mm.
I did too.
I
Fact Maybe we
was
just
not.
talked about it a lot. Yeah, right. Maybe just between the
Yes,
three of
there's
us.
been no, we talk about this program a lot. They should just like the PWHL has an official podcast partner. You know, surely UW women's basketball would love to have us. That would go over super well, I'm
hmm
sure. We are, God, just what, 4 days away from the season starting. Um, oh, well, Rowan and I did a show about Howell and Grabovskaya transferring here.
Right, right.
Um,
I
yeah,
swear we did one. I'm checking it right now too, but I guess if you're checking it, then.
yeah, no, the last one we did before the transfer one was March 4th when we are like, will they make the NCAA tournament?
Hmm.
Uh, Yeah, no. So it's good to be back. It's the point. All three of us have been really excited about, you know, obviously the program itself, but getting back and talking about this team. Rowan's out in Colorado now. It's very
Yeah.
sad we can't have Rowan out here. So no, it's great to be back, and there seems to be excitement around the country for this program. Maybe more excitement than we've anticipated, with the way that some of the media around the country are picking this team to be ranked, and not just ranked, but somewhat decently, not like super high, but maybe a little higher than we'd expect. Um, I guess to start out with, guys, we should talk about some of the new additions because, as I mentioned, Rowan and I did the thing on Grabovskaya and Howell. Like, I think I just wanted to put something together. It was really bad because I was doing it off in a hallway at the ballpark, and the Wi-Fi was bad, so I looked like I was loading 2 pixels at a time. Um, You've brought in Avery Howell. You've brought in uh, some new faces in the freshman class, which one has stumped us a little bit. But Yulia Grabovskaya out of Michigan, who's a senior, 6'5" senior. There is hypothetically some post presence there, and then the incoming class should be really interesting with Sienna Harvey at guard, Nina Kane at forward. Bryn McGoy is obviously the big name here at forward. And then Daniela McLean out of Ontario, 6'3" forward, who, that's more size, but also there's not a ton of information. Rowan, since both of us miss you very dearly. Oh, I think Bella's
I see
muted.
Bella talking, but I can't hear her.
My microphone ran out of battery.
Oh.
He
Uh,
also he's supposedly redshirting the season.
Yeah,
Right.
so it also probably won't matter, at least this year. But I was gonna say, Rowan, since we both miss you very dearly, we're gonna have you go first. We're gonna have you lead this stuff.
Yeah.
And then Bella, just you're obviously there's two things to look at with the transfers here and the freshman class, but I guess how do you feel about, the new faces coming into, build to this team? Because obviously it's big to have the group here of Sayvia, Elle. I don't think any of us were seriously concerned with any of them leaving, but there's a possibility, right? In college, college sports generally. Um, yeah, just your thoughts on the crew that's coming in here, whether that is maybe leaning either way on the incoming class or the transfers, just how you feel about them and what they can bring to Washington this for the 25-26 season.
This is okay. This is me. Okay. Yeah, I mean, we talked about Avery Howell and Yulia Grabovskaya. I think uh, basically what we've all been kind of saying is that we know that this team is really guard heavy, and we don't know much about the post play. Basically, actually everyone except for Olivia Anderson is new. You can put them in excuse. Oh yeah, what?
Shayla Gilmer.
Oh, Shayla Gilmore. I always forget that she's kind of considered a post.
Yeah,
I
but
feel
she
like
never plays, so
no, and so I see her
but you're
more. Yeah,
mostly correct. I just had
okay.
to
Thank you.
because I
No,
have
it's
my
funny.
notes organized by guards and post
Well, it's
players.
weird. It hurt. She in my mind, like she's a guard in my mind. I don't know why, but
But
thank
she
you for
doesn't
the
play like
correction.
one.
No,
And
no.
she's 6'1", so
Okay. Yeah, yeah. So, correction. Olivia and Shayla are the only returning posts. But again, like you said, Olivia Anderson was out most of the season last year, so we didn't see much from her. She also, when she was in, was about the fourth option between, what, Delia Daniels, Tyra Eke, then Brenna McDonald, and then Olivia Anderson. So she was like the fourth option. So that was didn't see much of her. And then same with Shayla Gilmore, didn't see much of her. So I think I'm really curious to see. I think, we also don't know much about Yulia Grabovskaya. I've tried to, look up some of her stats, but also, Michigan's a pretty strong team, and it didn't seem like she played all that much there. So I don't think that there's much to pull from there. So I think that's the biggest question mark to me. I think it could be really good, with Bryn McGoy, like obviously her high school resume speaks for itself. She was number 14 overall, five-star recruit, all of that. But everyone talks about the jump from high school to college in the same way as the jump from college to pro. You never really know how it's going to go. And I think we all expect her to be that starting in the starting five and at the starting five. But sorry, my dog is drinking water. But with that, that's a lot of pressure to put on a freshman, especially when you're coming in after having a post like Delia Daniels. And we've all talked about this, that I've seen in all the polls and all of the, people that are talking about, Washington as a team, who maybe don't cover them as much. They've mentioned the kind of gap that Delia has left, but I don't really feel like that's been taken into consideration enough. I think that, you have some really strong scoring guards. You have Sayvia, Elle, Hannah, and then you add Avery Howell, who only averaged 7.5 points, but she wasn't the go-to shooter at USC. She was basically strictly a distributor, and when she needed to step up, she did, after, Juju Watkins got injured. And so all that to say that I think Delia, in a weird way, was really underrated on UW's team, even though she was drafted, and I think she's gotten enough attention. But I think her impact in being able to get points from somewhere else was really underrated. And I think that the two number 17 rankings for this season that I found from all the different outlets maybe is a little high, just given that there's just so much guard play and we don't know what the post is going to look like. So I could be very pleasantly surprised on the incoming people, but with that many freshmen, I don't know. And also with the people that aren't freshmen, they also just don't have a ton of proven experience. So that's my thoughts.
Yeah, I think the makeup of the roster pretty much lends itself to playing the same way they ended up playing last year, which was four guards and Delia. If they're only going to really play with one post player the whole season, having five post players functionally on their roster, I think is fine. Because I don't think they're gonna rely on post players. You mentioned Gravaskaya. I did find some of her stats. She averaged 13.5 minutes per game at Michigan. You know, had sort of a solid free throw rate attempt. Got roughly 30% of her points on second chance points, which I actually think could be a nice addition. Something I found was interesting is she has a super high offensive rebounding percentage, so much so that she actually averaged more offensive rebounds per game than defensive rebounds per game, which I don't feel like is necessarily a good thing, like because we need defensive rebounding. But I do think that like even if you just put her in to grab maybe like late game offensive rebounds, like that's not a bad option to have if Bryn McGoy is able to play quite a bit. Maybe Olivia Anderson will make a big jump this year. It's her junior season. I also am similarly kind of interested in how Nina Kane will turn out. There's not like a ton of size there, 6'2", but had 990 rebounds over her high school career, which is a very solid number by any margin. Over 2,000 points as well. So like a very capable scorer. In terms of Avery Howell, I actually don't think USC used her as a distributor. She did not average many assists at USC. Like she did not rack up that many assists. Her assist to turnover ratio was fine, but her like assist percentage was relatively low. I think more or less they use her as a spot up shooter to space the floor. And so she shot, I think, almost 40% from three, but she did not attempt a lot of 2-point shots. She didn't draw a lot of fouls or like make a lot of attempts for points in the paint. So I'm a little concerned there that it's like because UW took a lot of like mid-range jumpers. They love their mid-range jumpers. A lot of times they didn't necessarily draw fouls because they weren't driving all the way to the bucket, with the exception of Sayvia, who I think is very good at that. But I do think like she's used to not being the superstar. She can be a lower usage player and then just come up with those big threes. So I think if you're still keeping Sayvia and Hannah, like I would hope that they're playing 2-point guards at once, because then otherwise you're only shooters, and I don't know how that could possibly work out. But I do think that they're going to do a lot of what they did last year. They're going to rely heavily on 3-point shooting, on guards doing gang rebounding, and having a lot of perimeter threats to ideally space the floor out and let a player like Rin McGoy just go to work alone down there by herself. There's not a ton of size to compete with in the Big Ten. It's not like college. It still could be an issue against certain teams, but I think I'm less concerned about the lack of post players than I initially thought I was, and a little more concerned about like, will the 3-point percentage live up to like the 13th in the nation type percentage that it was last year? Because then they sort of lost games when they weren't hot from three. So can they figure out how to mix that? The one other thing I'll say is I'm really interested to see Sienna Harvey. She has done a lot of impressive things for the U19 team, most recently for Australia at the FIBA U19 Women's World Cup, running a silver medal there, getting a lot of assists. Sounds like she is a point guard with really good speed and ball handling skills. I read a story about her watching a lot of Kyrie Irving and like really admiring his play, and handles and finishing. So, another 5'10" guard too. Like the shortest guard on the roster is Sayvia at 5'7". So even though they're not, they don't have a ton of like really big posts, they're not necessarily a small team either. They have big guards who are all around 5'11", 5'10", 6 foot in the case of Avery Howell. So I think there's a lot to be excited about. And the biggest thing will be like, how quickly can they get used to not playing with Delia? Even if they're playing in the same system, Delia is just such a unique player that so many of them played with for so long. Like, they just got used to it and they relied on her so much. So how quickly does someone else take over as that veteran voice on the floor, and also that role in the center, like, because she was used a lot to pass in and out and get the ball to different shooters from her inside position. So I think it'll be really key for whatever post sort of takes that mantle on to do it in their own way, but also they have like real big shoes to fill.
Not that this is really possible, but thinking about that, like in just Delea's leadership and everything, I would have loved if it would have happened that she and Bryn McGoy overlapped for a year. I think that that would have been so perfect because, right, you have Yulia Grabovskaya, who's a senior, but at the same time, she's new to the program. She also, sounds like didn't have a leadership role in Michigan. Like that is interesting to bring up the leadership because that was so much of just Delea's experience in, just playing UW basketball. So I'm interested to see how much that's gonna kind of add to the vibe of the team. You have, some seniors that have been there, you have Elle Ladine and Shayla Gilmore and Tegan Brown and, all of them and Hannah Steins, but, are they, I don't know. I don't know which one is gonna step up in that way.
Related to that, something that I thought was so fascinating, Percy Allen's Seattle Times story from Big Ten Media Day, a quote from head coach Tina Langley about Avery. Doesn't really talk at all about like how she's fitting in basketball wise, but said, I thought she also has just a beautiful ability to lead in a way that is inspirational. She also wants really well for all of her teammates, and you can feel that energy and that passion to help people grow. Like, so it feels like maybe even like a sophomore like Howell is starting to fit into that role and maybe take on some of that leadership. Hopefully also players like I think Hannah and Elle in particular as like the most experienced guards, both in terms of playing and in years, are taking that on, but it'll definitely be interesting to see how that sort of evolves throughout the season.
Yeah, to take things from both of you guys, I mean, obviously, like, I felt like every game we were like, wow, Delia did this really well. Or, I mean, whether it was, being your lone big, being so versatile, whether it was offensively, the rebounding, getting inside, or just some of the assignments that she got, right? Defensively. I was like, hey, you mentioned, the size, right? And I was kind of thinking about that. Um, I mean, what the biggest team you'll play is maybe UCLA, with Lauren Betts, right? But
Yeah,
who
probably.
was guarding Lauren Betts?
It was Delia.
Yeah. So it'll be interesting. Yeah, that's my biggest concern. And I think I don't know. We'll look at that, I'm sure. Other maybe concerns you've got. I mean, you guys have kind of listed them with the 3-point shooting as well. That was something I'm looking at the schedule here. Your second game is Montana. And I'm not saying your second game of the season will determine everything, but if you look back to last season, they struggled against Montana. They made 2 3-pointers in total. They gave up 50 points in the paint. It did not go well. And that was kind of their first like showing of deficiency um of the season. It was kind of like, hey, this doesn't look good. So it's also a great point with Bella. They was it mid-season? I think it was around the Iowa game or the Kelsey game when they went to the 4 guards because they had been playing Tyreke and DeLay on the court to start the season off with.
Yeah.
And I am interested to see what the starting five looks like to begin the year. You mentioned Percy Allen in his article. I've talked to Percy about this too during the Storm stuff. When we've seen him, I'm like, hey, what do you think they're gonna do? Because obviously you've got Sayvia and Elle on the court. Hannah Science played a big role for you last year, and I'm not at all downplaying the impact that she's got. But if we're gonna do the, I think
Our favorite depth chart.
Rowan saw my drawings of the starting five. So if you've got nope, not calling her that. You got Sayvia and Elle. I imagine Sayvia Elle. I'd be really shocked if Avery Howell doesn't start. I've been looking at some folks who do women's basketball collegiate stuff, and one had Grabovskaya starting, and neither McGoy or Howell starting. I'm like, I don't think you bring Avery Howell in to not start, and I don't think Tina. I almost called her Tina Howell. Tina Langley's best recruit doesn't. Maybe not to begin with. I don't know.
I mean, if
Um,
Delia was still here, I would say Bryn wouldn't start. But
yeah,
because
but I
Delia
don't
is
think you're
gone,
running the
the other
traditional
two
five.
post players who you gave minutes to are gone. Shayla Gilmore played in like 8 games.
Yeah,
Olivia Anderson, I don't remember how many games she played in. She also
she had an
fouled out a
injury.
lot whenever she did play.
Yeah,
Like, because there is such a hole there. Obviously, we don't know how Bryn is looking so far in practice and stuff. I think um, the Percy again she's displayed an ability to shoot, pass, and rebound, and just possesses an amazing all around skill set for someone so young. But like not like he suggested that she'll play center in the 4 guard lineup, and I pretty much agree with that.
that's what
I
we
think I
we
think it
talked
makes
about.
the
Also,
most
Yeah.
sense to continue to play Sayvia and Hannah starting together. I think having those 2 point guards did a lot for the ball movement. Elle obviously had a great shooting season. I think if unless someone like Devin Coppinger or Chloe Briggs is playing better defense and shooting at the same rate, I think they could start if their defense is better. Because the one thing I will say is I was looking at CBB analytics, and it seems like Avery Howell's defensive stats are just kind of so-so. Not they weren't bad, they weren't great, but a lot of Washington's offense is getting defensive stops and running, and they want
Yep.
to do a lot of that. So if someone like Devin or Chloe, I say Devin because she, was really good in her limited minutes and maybe could have a big uptick, in Chloe because obviously she took over that starting role once they did switch to 4 guards, and I think partially because of their defense. So I think if one of them is maybe playing better defense than Howell, I could see one of them starting over her, but I'd still be surprised if you weren't starting your tallest guard, who's also a very good shooter, when you have 2 point guards on the floor, and then if you have imagine Elle and Avery on opposite sides of the court. Who are you guarding?
Yeah.
Right? And you have to put someone fast on Sayvia. Hannah can knock down her shots too, but will do a great job of just moving the ball around. Like, I think that's what makes the most sense, but it's
Is a
hard to know like what's been gelling in practice or anything.
Yeah, so it's a five. I don't know, direct. Like I imagine your one and two are Savia and Elle. I don't care how you put three and four, but it's Avery and Hannah, I imagine,
Well, I
with
think it would
Bryn
be
at the
more like
five.
one and two is Sayvia and Hannah, and then
Oh, because Elle's a little bit. She's not short.
Elle's 5'11".
Um,
Yeah, she's
yeah, and
big.
Hannah's.
I think she's I
Five
have it listed.
ten.
She's
She's
5'11"
5'10".
too, actually.
Mm.
They're both
Oh, so
5'11".
you can go either way. Yeah, I don't think how you. I'm sure there's a meaning, but yeah, I think we all agree that's your five.
Yeah.
Or that in an ideal world that's your five because yeah they don't we'll see how Yulia does, some of the offensive rebounding numbers you mentioned are very interesting. I
Yeah.
Okay. um
I found it
but
fascinating. I've never seen that
I
before.
I doubt because Tina, they seem to like how they were running things. Tyra had her moments in the beginning, but it worked well for them, and maybe that is giving Delia more of that responsibility and she thrived in that. But yeah, I think pretty universally. The interesting thing is, and if you've seen the show before, and these two know where I'm going to go with this as soon as I say her name, I'm a big believer in Devin Coppinger. Okay, but
Yes.
and I'm not just bullshitting either with this. I have heard great things about Devin's work in the off season, and she's been credited with some great leadership. I don't remember where I read it, but there was some really glowing quotes about what Devin has done in the off season, and like part of what I was gonna say was, yeah, about how quickly they can, maybe shake off any dependency on what Delia had done, right? But like, I don't think there will be a doubt on the chemistry side of things. Because I mean, all of us, I mean, we'd share it, right? The TikToks that were made about how they're staying together, they're keeping this group
They're
together.
getting Sayvia in TikToks. That's a big deal. She's been really upping her TikTok game. So that says anything about the chemistry. That's that's it.
Right? Like they were posting pictures like out at the pool together, stuff like that. They were at the Kraken game the other night all together, this whole group of I think it was everybody.
This team loves a
So
team bonding
it's
event.
They sure
oh,
do.
for sure. They had Savia do the surge thing at the Kraken game, which I think she was, Savia. She's a little shy. But they got her going, and then she was screaming. I was like, wow, like, whoa, we're getting her going today. Rowan, it looked like you had something.
I was gonna say with that, the great segue. I was gonna say with the chemistry part and talking about the starting lineup, another thing that I keep reminding people when she committed was that Avery Howell and Bryn McGoy played together
Ah,
in high school. They played AAU together. They are friends. I think that was a big part of why Avery Howell chose to go to UW. Also with that, I'm trying to like shift my brain a little bit to also be thinking about more of the like NIL, whatever
yeah,
side of it, and just thinking about it, people were surprised. I don't think we really were when you really like break it down that she's from Boise and probably wanted to stay in the Big Ten and everything. But I think a lot of people were surprised that Avery Howell did choose to go to Washington. And so, when you think about something like that and you think about coming from a team like USC who made it really far in the tournament, I think there has to be an element of Tina Langley saying, if you come here, you're going to start. Like you kind of have to think about those
yeah,
things. And honestly, maybe a little bit with Bryn McGoy too. But just with that, you have the chemistry. You also have, these kind of higher profile players. Like I think that has to be your starting five. So that's all I have to say about the starting five.
I will say, Tina doesn't give me the vibe of someone who would make promises like that.
True. That is
She's
true.
very much like a you're gonna earn your spot kind of
Very
person.
true.
And like I again from like Percy's story Big Ten Media Day, she was asked about like if she had a starting five, and she was like, "No, I do not yet. Like the competition's really tough,"
Hmm.
which is I think what you want, right? Like you want people to can be competing for spots as long as it's like the competition is tough, like they're good and not like it's like who are you're deciding who's worse kind of thing. Like that's not what you want. So like I doubt she gave any of those sort of promises, but
True.
I do think that the talent of those players
Mhm.
will translate to them starting.
Yeah.
Like I would be I would be very surprised to see them not. Like, obviously, Avery Howell played more off the bench at USC because they had quite a few big stars, and then sort of like had some of her like breakout games once Juju was injured and they like really needed more scoring. I don't know if she would have like expect to start, but I don't know that I've seen anything yet from Chloe or Devin that makes me think they'd start over her. I still think it's possible. I know you love Devin, Charles, and she's great, and I like really
Train.
loved her.
I
I
agree
really
though that
loved her last season.
and she really, especially by the end of the season, like she really proved herself that you're right. I think if they are in the beginning of the season, if they're like, we need the defense, we're in a defensive, like this just isn't working for us, like she's not a liability on offense to, and same with Chloe Briggs. Neither of them are liabilities on offense to make it that if they, did get into the starting lineup, it wouldn't be like, oh, you're only here for defense, and then yikes, can't give you the ball.
Like they're similarly just like more or less
Yeah.
spot up 3-point shooters.
Mhm.
Like that is what they do, that is what they did. I think that like there were a lot of times last season, especially as the season went on, we saw Devin come in when they really needed a defensive stop or they just wanted to turn things up on defense.
Yeah.
Like I do think Chloe was that sort of sub sometimes too when she wasn't already starting. So I think I'm curious to see what Avery's defense looks like. I don't remember watching enough of it at USC, and I feel like every time I watch USC, all I could think was like Juju ball offense. Like my brain was not paying
Yeah.
attention to a lot of the other stuff,
I
and I
think
feel
of
like
Seattleite Malia Samuels. I'm going to throw another Seattle reference in. I
Wow.
think of Seattleite Malia Samuels when I think of good defense for USC, specifically like good
well,
guard
and like
defense.
Kaylee Heckel too was
Yeah,
really good
yeah,
before
yeah.
she transferred to UConn.
Mhm.
Like, so I think it's I have no clue what to expect from her defensive side. I know what to expect from Devin and Chloe's
Totally.
defense. And the question will become, if they're playing the same defense, who is the most consistent shooter
Mhm.
Yeah.
or like making the best reads, making the best movements, like contributing to the offense as a whole. And maybe that'll be Chloe to start because she has experience with the other starters that Avery
Chloe had
doesn't.
some
True.
moments. She
I
had
did
some
want to
moments.
ask, we kind of touch on this, but I kind of pulled something out of an article I was reading that I was interested what you two thought about it. When they have ESPN had a basically ranking impact transfers and saying who was going to be the most impactful and whatever. Avery was number 25, and it said that she essentially would help, it was talking about the gap that Delia left, and that she would basically replace the scoring production left by Delia. And I forgot to bring that up when we were talking about that. Personally, I was thinking about it and I was like, I feel like it's kind of a weird sentence because it's like they're not the same position, and I think
Exactly.
that's the part that you're missing. It's not going to be that Avery Howell is just going to go and post up and get all these points. Like I
She not?
don't. I don't know. Maybe she will, but I'm just like you already had such a guard heavy team, and if they could have been successful without like it is just a fact that you can't have a team of all guards of completely all guards. You can't even if you
I'm the
have
Big Ten.
yeah, no. I mean, if you had all the best 3-point shooters in the whole NCAA,
I
put them
mean,
on
UW
one team.
tried.
Yeah, yeah.
They did try.
Half the time they played Delia like a guard
Right,
anyway.
exactly. Right. So anyway, I just was pointing that out. No hate to ESPN. I just thought it was interesting because I just think there's a lot more to that than just finding more production. You have to figure out how Avery is then going to be integrated with the other guard production that was already strong.
Yeah, like if you're talking pure math, technically, in a sense, she does replace the production.
Yeah,
Like I think she could, with significant minutes, could average double digits that
right.
and like multiple threes per game. That I don't think is a question. But it's, you know, you have to if they don't have to like double your post player like they did sometimes with Delia or like
Mhm.
keep a very close eye on your post player, then the spacing that you're trying to predicate your offense on isn't going to work as well. And like I
Mhm.
had mentioned before, like Delia did a lot in terms of how she helped facilitate the offense
Mhm.
from her position to move the ball in and out, in and out. And if they don't, maybe Avery plays a little bit like a four and she like is down in the post more and they try to get her like out of her comfort zone there a little bit. But they're going to need someone to at least be a presence down there and you know, take their shot when they have their shot, but also pay attention enough to find your outside shooters because that is so much of what Delia did and so much of what again a defense that or an offense that it wants to primarily shoot the three is gonna do.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, and then you talk about her potentially playing a four. It just goes back to what Rowan has brought up about Howell and Bryn knowing each other. Which I mean, hey, there's some chemistry there, so that could be fun. I want to go back to it before I move on to the returners. Um, let's get this straight. I am very much bought into the future of Devin Coppinger. Next year is very much where you kind of, well, it's also interesting because you mentioned Sienna Harvey. Like, this is a great class. I'm very excited for what this class can impact, how it can impact Washington going forward. Because Nina Kane, I'm sure she won't get a ton of play outside of, these early games. I'm sure they'll get everybody looks. Maybe somebody helps you, maybe ideally Sir Charlie Cream and his March people they'll be playing in the March. And it was interesting when we got to the Big Ten tournament who, Chloe Briggs did have her moments late into the season, right? But there were some players who, like a Shayla Gilmer, we didn't see as much or hardly at all.
Or at all.
So this is another year I like to see her kind of build off of what Sayvia and Elle will be doing. It's obviously Elle's senior season. I'm going to talk about that in a second. But yeah, no, I'm not worried about that. Trust me, the Devin Coppinger hype train is settled in for the long run. Next year, her and Sayvia. Anyway, we'll get excited about that later. I'm not worried about that immediately, but the defensive points are also interesting to think about for sure as well, because she would come into some games and was like, oh, okay, this is immediate like defensive intensity. I can guarantee you Tina likes that. Um, yeah, that goes to it. What are you expecting out of the final year for Elle Ladine? And then, I know it was always interesting, and I've said this on previous shows, I'm pretty sure, but hearing Bella talk about this Savia Sellers person at UW, and I wasn't covering the team at the time, and I was like, whatever, Bella, like I'm trying to focus on the rain game or whatever we're watching
I
right now.
love
Can you
Sayvia.
leave me alone? She was like talking about this freshman, da 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 da. And then I see her in person the first game, and I was like, "Oh shit! Like this is real."
Get on
And the
the hype
nation kind of
train.
found that out, right? It was really cool to see that, yeah. And then there were other colleges like, "Oh, bring her here," and yeah, we talked about that. What do you expect from? Obviously, there are returners like Hannah Stein's had her moments as well. We've talked about that. Chloe Briggs is someone who's accomplished in high school that we texted about today. But I'm primarily thinking, what are you looking for? From an Elle, from a Sayvia. Sayvia was selected to the the coach preseason All Big Ten team. Elle was the media preseason All Big Ten team. We know that Elle can get hot, and she had the 40 ball against Northwestern, I think. Sayvia, like playmaking, getting her shot.
Is
It's
a
it's
machine.
always so fun.
Hannah
Um,
Stein's had
since
a 29-point season high.
yeah, yeah, I can almost like guarantee that'll change. That'll be
And
broken
Sayvia
this
had a
year.
30, didn't she? Because I remember that there was some weird stat about like, oh, the only team to have a 40, 30, and 29
Oh,
or
yes.
something. I was like,
And it was like, we're making up things
yeah,
today.
anyways.
Whatever it
Yeah,
was,
no.
Sayvia did it and she's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, so since we're doing that, I'm gonna have you start, Bella, and talk about what you're either looking for or expecting out of, your returners, primarily with, hey, if you want to talk about Hannah Steins, you can talk about Hannah Steins. Um,
I'm
or
also a Hannah Stein's truther, so it's I go a lot of
you
ways.
are, or your favorite Olivia Anderson. Maybe there is a bump up coming in her, what was it, her junior year as well?
I think it's her
Um,
junior year, yeah.
yeah, they introduced Sayvia at the Kraken game and said junior, and I was like, "What are you talking about? She's not a junior." And I was like, "Oh, damn,
Yeah,
it,
it feels
it
silly.
is
If you
junior
remember
year."
at the end of the season, like all three of us were like, there's no way that we get 2 more years of Savia Sellers at UW. Like that's
Hmm.
just crazy. Like it's just, yeah, yeah.
Also, don't forget, I've forgotten senior Tegan Brown, by the way,
I was gonna mention her.
I mentioned
collection
Tegan
of
Brown.
guards.
I mentioned Tegan Brown. Don't
Did
even.
you?
Yes, I
It's
did.
yeah,
She's
okay,
very
we have
similar
mentioned
to
everybody on the
Chloe
roster.
Briggs.
Yeah, Bella, your thoughts on your other returners here, and then obviously to our friend Rowan.
I think I expect a lot. I expect a continuation of what we saw last year. Like what we saw from Sayvia was more control and more thoughtful decision making. She had fouled out of a couple games and had foul trouble affect her in some games. And we had talked to her throughout the season about sort of figuring that out and finding her way and getting a little bit better about not fouling out of games, especially because they wanted her in late game situations. I think I want to see her continue to drive to the basket with how sneaky. Like a lot of people, like I think are like, oh well, small guard, like they're just gonna get blocked. Why would they go to the basket? But like when you're small, you can kind of like wiggle through, and you can like, and she, has watched other small guards and knows kind of what to do. I just expect Sayvia to be still like apps just like so entertaining to watch. Like I can't even fully describe it. I think she is so much fun to watch. I think she will, continue to find a balance between getting her own shot and passing it off to her teammates because she does sort of play a little bit of point guard. I think that's kind of how she came in. But she's also just such a talented scorer that you can't keep her from doing that. I want to see maybe fewer mid-range shots. I think the three and driving to the basket is like really where she thrives. Not to say that a mid-range shot here or there is bad. That feels more like Elle's game. Like Elle loves a pull-up 2-point shot, kind of like 2-3 feet in from the 3-point line. You guys know what I'm talking about. Um, so I think I continue. I mean, her freshman year was so good, and then her leap going into her sophomore year was again so good. I expect a similar leap. Like that is just the kind of person she is, the kind of work that she puts in. For Hannah, I think we saw her confidence kind of grow as the season went on, and I hope that that continues because when she was confident in her 3-point shot, and her teammates were very confident in her 3-point shot, Elle was always like, Hannah was a scorer in college, like she should be shooting the ball. And I think the more she is confident in that shot, again, the more it spaces the floor. If teams know that she is not only going to distribute and that she will knock down her own shot, that just helps them space the floor, which is what they're going to want to do. So I think she'll continue to have high assist numbers and just kind of be like a steady. I mean, I think, oh my God, I can't even. I feel like most games she played like all 40 minutes. There were like several games where she fully didn't come out, like especially tight or like really big games. And it's because she is just so consistent. And so I think smart and calm, and I think that will continue. Something that I thought was really interesting, again from Percy's story, just because that's the only place I could really find information about what Washington said at Big Ten Media Day, is that they have sort of been working on the mental side of things, and Tina made them go back and watch the NCAA tournament loss to Columbia and how that game sort of slipped away from them in the final minutes and how devastating that was for them and how it was kind of because of mental lapses. And it sounds like they've worked on that a lot. So I expect those returning players, in particular, Hannah, Sayvia, Elle, probably Chloe as well, who I think played heavy minutes in those games, to really focus on the mental side of things and making smart decisions in games and staying focused in games and not letting results like that happen again, or at least keeping them closer, just not letting. There was several times we saw big leads get away from them, like just sort of really focusing on the the issues that were prevalent last year. I think I kind of think Elle's gonna pop off even more. Not gonna lie, I think she is looking to the W, and she is like, I want to be a top shooting guard in the W, and to do that, I need to score like crazy. And we know she's capable of that. Want to see maybe a little more consistency from her, but that's just kind of like a shooter's thing. Is like shooters are just sort of are inconsistent. That's sort of the nature of being a shooter. It's not really her fault specifically. But I think the more consistent she can be as a shooter, the better for them. And Chloe and Tegan, I expect to continue to be, if not starters, like important contributors off the bench who can, just knock down a three when they're in the right position and play really good defense. And that's similar with Devin. I do hope she makes a big jump from freshman to sophomore, because I really liked her game as a freshman. I Every time she came in, I was just like, you can tell that this girl is fighting for her minutes. She knows that she has to work her ass off, specifically defensively, to get on the floor. And she seemed perfectly happy to do that. And I love that from her. And I think that will continue to serve her well. And, maybe Olivia Anderson will come back, from being injured and make a big impact. It would be great if you're a 6'6" junior, maybe put on a little muscle and was able to defend someone like I want to say Lou Barnes, Lauren Betts, like on the wrong sport right now. Like if she could come in and because she had some good offensive moments, and it was just like a lack of discipline on the defensive end that really did her in a lot of the time. So it's another one of those like mental side of things, and it seems like they've put a lot of work into that. So I think the biggest like hopefully change that we'll see this year is from returners is sort of an improved mindset, an improved mental side of the game. Because that like teams like UConn and South Carolina, those teams that win, like you have that experience of being in winning games and how to win those kinds of games. And that's the thing that Washington has kind of been lacking, not having been in the tournament and not having been in those kinds of situations. So maybe now having had that, at least one tournament game, that'll sort of help them with that side of things that has been, missing as a program that doesn't necessarily play in those big games, those big moments a lot. The end of my spiel. Rowan?
Those were all great points. I totally agree. I think I mean, yeah, like you said about everyone, like, I think that the mental point is a really good point. And that's why, yeah, you see a team like, like UConn who, their conference schedule is not super challenging. And like, yeah, they, try and build their non-conference, but it's just looking at a team like that and being like, how are you always prepared then when you get to the tournament? And you still go and blow through teams like you kind of did in your non-con or in your conference games, when you didn't have that much competition. And right, so much of that is mental. And yeah, I mean, speaking of confidence, I feel like I'm seeing that, when we were talking about leadership, I feel like I'm seeing that a lot from Elle Ladine. It feels like she just seems to just be in a, I don't know, just be in a really good mood from what I'm seeing
Mm-hmm.
on social media. Like she just seems to be really excited for the season. She, seems to be really taking just the team on.
She's
And
ready to pop off.
yes, yes, exactly. She's getting ready
That's
for
the best
she's,
way.
she's getting ready to pop off. Exactly. And I'm like, yeah, I think that I really do think that she will be huge. I have very high expectations for her. And yeah, I mean, starting off with being eighth in the Big Ten and scoring last year, you're very well set up to, keep that going. Yeah, coming off a 40-point game last season, we know what she is capable of. And I do think that just keeping that kind of level-headedness and just excitement to be playing, I think will be really important to her and those around her. I do think I'm really, and we keep bringing her up. It's like we're never going to stop bringing her up, even though she doesn't play there anymore. I think one thing I'm interested to see with the returners is how much of an impact did Delia Daniels distributing have on the way that they shoot. That is what I think I'm the most interested, like, right, that Sayvia can create her own shot, and that she can drive, and that she was helped by Delia for sure, but that she can do a lot of that herself. And I'm interested to see with the other shooters, how, yeah, can you get open to have a three? Like you were saying, can you get open when you used to have maybe a double team on Delia, or, someone just not really paying attention to the weak side? Like, can you continue that kind of 3-point production specifically when you don't have something drawing when the defenders aren't being drawn to the post? So yeah, I echo everything that you said, and just trying to think of something else to add that isn't just
Sorry.
no, don't be sorry.
I
You
should have
brought up
stopped
great
sooner.
points. Like, I just, yeah, that's kind of, I think everyone wants everyone to have a big leap, year to year. And so obviously that is my hope and my expectation for everyone. But I think that my only interest with the returners is, can there be a leadership presence in the way that Delia was. And I think that, Elle, she spent all 4 years at UW. That's a big, like that's a big deal. And, so that, and also, yeah, just how is this going to work with the returners without Delia, and if they're going to be, yeah, producing in that way.
Yeah, I mean it's a great point. I am the jump that Elle took was a thing because I did talk to a few media folks when I started, the first few games. They're like, "What do you who you looking for?" I was like, Ladine, and she's like, "Oh, her." It's like, "Yeah, what about her?" And it was like largely on the consistency and scoring, but I mean, yeah, this is the thing with volume shooters, right? We've seen our fair share of volume shooters in Seattle, particularly one that's not here anymore, you know. But yeah, I mean, if you want to talk about someone who has kind of like spearheaded the all the good vibes, I guess you could say, around this program, I think it's Elle, right? I mean, on TikTok in comments, replying to people, "Oh, we want you here." She's like, "No, I'm happy here." She's
I
like,
love
"Oh,
that her
Avery's here."
analysis is just TikTok. Like, oh, Sayvia seems to be doing really well. She's in
Hey man,
TikToks.
this is journalism now, okay? Look at the TikTok comments. We knew Sayvia Sellers wasn't transferring anywhere. No.
Lieu of media availability, we have TikToks.
Don't don't get me started on this.
Slight shade.
I know you can get started on that. Yeah,
I won't.
hopefully we'll get things going here.
I'll be quiet.
Yeah, but I mean, think about it. Yeah, and like you talk about the confidence, it's there, and she knows it. Like I think she's even. We're gonna use a different social media to analyze here on Instagram. She's got like a last ride tab because this is it. This is it. Yeah, as you mentioned, wants to make a case. WNBA is getting bigger. There are more teams here. There's more opportunity. There's still limited opportunity, right? But you want to showcase yourself, and you're in a bigger conference. This is a team that ideally should. Uh, do more. Uh, well, I don't know. I'm not going to say they're going to take a huge leap in wins, but I am like at minimum expecting them to get back to the tournament. I don't know like how seeding wise that would go. I think they also
They're
didn't get,
currently projected to be a number 7 seed. I looked again, and
But
they're
then some had them as like a number 10, didn't they?
they what?
Some site had them as a 10 seed.
Oh, did they? I don't know. Well,
Mr.
Mr.
Ah,
Cream,
Cream,
okay.
as
Sir
The
Charlie
Cream.
official
calls him,
source.
is
We're gonna get this
has the
man
better
on the show. Can you imagine? Sir Cream, we're so glad to talk to you.
We call
Why
him Sir
don't you have
Cream the
Washington
whole
ranked
time.
high? Yes. Um,
I
so
think that alone will get him to not agree.
no, we'll figure it out. Well, he can tell us if that or if that's or it's like Frem, Anyway, that's not important. It's important when we get closer to March and we have to start saying his name closer and closer again. But yeah, no, I mean you talk about like chief vibes officer. It's Benel. Like she's leading this, and I have to wonder how much of it she's been. I don't know. I'm sure she did say something like that at some point during the year during the home press conferences we got, of course. But I imagine she is like a big sister to Sayvia in a way, you know. So it is going to be really interesting, yeah, to see what this year's like for her. Well, you get Bella talking about Sayvia, and it gets you riled up. It's like, oh, don't rile the dog up. Sayvia has riled me up. Nope, Bella has riled me up talking about Sayvia. Um, yeah, man. I mean, it's kind of tough. Yeah, as you mentioned, we really haven't been able, there's been nothing in terms of practice availability or anything with the coach, Langley or the players yet. First game's on the third. Uh, I guess, okay, yeah, we'll wrap this one up. I guess, what are you looking forward to most with the season besides watching them play again, of course? And I guess are there any games that you circle, right? There's always the cliche sports thing. What game are you circling on the schedule? I think, to put my input in, because largely I have been here for personality. You two have brought the hard-hitting numbers. I am just here to look pretty. You obviously look at
Questions?
UCLA. You look at
You tell us.
UCLA, you look at Oregon. That like last four games, Oregon, UCLA, Nebraska. I don't know nothing about Nebraska.
Oh,
Oregon, like similar sort of situation, not necessarily with UCLA squeezed in there, right? But we talked about that last season, losing that Oregon game, very tight Oregon game. Um, and then come back winning here, right? I'm sure there will be other games, but you remember last year the arguments I made. This is a Washington team that in those early season like little for the little tournaments that basketball teams are in, right? The one
Like
where they
Thanksgiving
flew.
tournaments.
Yeah,
Yeah, like the
Washington
travel ones and like the Cayman Islands and random stuff.
Washington pushed, was it help me. Who was it?
LSU.
LSU.
Washington should have beaten LSU.
Yeah, they
Like
should
that was a
have.
big early game in the year. So I don't know. Yeah, what are you looking forward to with the program this year? And are there any games that you are like preemptively, I'm gonna be extra zeroed in to this game. We're gonna go Rowan and then Bella, and then we'll get out of here because we have to do another show.
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm again most looking forward to just seeing how this all comes together. I think you have a lot of talent, specifically guard talent, and as I've mentioned a million times before, I'm just very curious to see how that plays out. I think we talked at the end of the season about like we don't really know, like it feels like I did obviously, but I don't know UW women's basketball without Delia in the post. And so it's just really interesting to think about how that's going to look. And especially aside from that, just not having a veteran presence in the post as well. And just, being like, okay, you need a lot of positions going on to have a successful basketball team. And if you don't have if you don't have someone that has experience in this system, in the post, that could, be an issue. So yeah, that's mainly what I'm looking at. I'm really excited. I didn't really get a chance to, even though she was in the state of Washington, I didn't get a chance to, see Bryn McGoy play in high school ever. I don't, I've seen some of her highlights, but I'm really interested to see her play. I'm super excited about that. Excited to see, Avery Howell playing for UW. I know Bella and I both saw her play with USC at the Sweet 16 and Elite Eight.
Yeah.
So that was really fun.
Spokane, let's go.
We had a great time in Spokane, especially we had a great time driving all night to get back to Seattle. That was a fun time.
Yes,
Um,
I was only slightly delirious by the end.
but I'm excited to see that. I'm excited to see the newcomers for sure, especially knowing that, Tina, she's what her top recruiting, she was what top five recruiting classes in the NCAA or something like that. Surprised I don't know that because of how much they talked about it. But yeah, and then looking at the schedule, honestly, now that you bring up the whole LSU thing, I'm actually kind of disappointed with their non-con schedule, if I'm being honest. Like, we know you always have the Seattle U game, obviously. We probably know how that's gonna go, likely. But then you have the Montana game, which like you said, Montana did give them a run for their money last year. Utah's a big one. I haven't looked much into them, but I know my alma mater CSU is also playing Utah, and that was a very big deal when they got that as a non-con. So Utah's always up there. I know that their program is also great shooter, so I'm interested to see how that goes. But yeah, then you have, Fresno State, Vermont, Southern, UCSD, UC San Diego made a run or not made a run in the tournament, made it to
Southern's
the
not a bad
tournament.
opponent. I think Southern plays a decent amount of sort of Power Five
They
Yeah,
played
non-con.
Southern last year too, if I
they
remember.
Yeah.
did. I remember that. Yeah, they did.
You
Um,
photoed
so
that.
I did photo that game. That's why I remember. But yeah, so I don't know. Stanford obviously is a big name, but again, since Tara Vanderveer retired, it's kind of like, don't really know what's gonna happen from them. So yeah, I don't know. Anyways, looking at the non-cons, a little disappointing. Conference games, I'm excited to I mean, the Big Ten, as much as I miss the Pac-12, because it is very sad, it is very
Sure.
fun to, see them play all these schools. Like, it is a powerhouse conference. And I think that that's one of the many reasons why, UW got a bid last year was because they played so many Big Ten teams so closely and also non-Big Ten teams so closely. But yeah, I'm excited to see them play Oregon. That's always a fun game, no matter the roster. But you still have Ari Long, who used to play for UW. You have Seattle like Katie Fiso. You have to throw her in. And yeah, I think that that's always a fun matchup. Iowa got some recruits. I know that they got a really good, I believe she's a point guard, Chit Chat Wright. She's has some hype coming into the season, so I'm excited about that. So yeah, I mean, you have your Purdue's and you know, Rutgers and those teams that maybe do not have much going for them. But otherwise, I just think being in the Big Ten in general is just an exciting lineup of games. And yeah, just wishing that maybe they could have swung a bigger name non-con. But you know, I think that I mean a win against Stanford would still be super exciting. Regardless, it's going to be fun to see Avery Howell play her former team, even though it looks a lot different in USC. And that one is weirdly in the middle of their non-con schedule. It's on December 7th. I don't really understand why that happened. But anyways, those are the ones I'm looking forward to seeing. But yeah.
Yeah, I think one that I think Michigan will be interesting, just because Michigan is another kind of resurgent program. I think that gave them trouble last year. And then Maryland. I think they played Maryland pretty close. That was the game that Kalen Michael had like 40 points.
Oh,
If you guys remember. And
That
I'm
was
not
crazy.
mistaken, they got Yarden Garzone in the transfer portal.
Right.
So
Yes.
like I'm very curious to see that Maryland team, and I think Brenda Freeze is obviously a very good coach and knows Tina. She was her assistant coach, and so Tina was Brenda's assistant coach, to be clear. Um, so I'm kind of interested to see that one. I'm always interested in like the USC UCLA, particularly because those are sort of the Big Ten powerhouses at this point. Um, and then in terms of just the season, I think this team has some really electrifying players in Sayvia and Elle in particular, players that you're kind of on the edge of your seat watching that are just really entertaining. And so I'm excited to see them balance that with the sort of defensive discipline that we know wants and needs in her team. Um, and just to see how this I'm not I mean I go back and forth on being concerned about the defense because like it sort of has been their calling card, but then it wasn't as good last year, even though it was still something that they kind of needed to rely on to win games. So I'm curious to see like how much they will rely on that defense again, or if they're like, we're just going to try and score 100 points on every single team because we have so many 3-point shooters, and that is our game plan. That would be fascinating. I don't expect that to happen, but it would be kind of funny. So I think I'm just excited to see how everyone meshes. I am also really excited to see Bryn McGoy. I love a good freshman class. Obviously, I was huge on Sayvia when she came in, um, and was like, oh yeah, she's gonna be a starter real freaking soon. Um, and I'm excited to see the other freshmen coming in. I really like the freshman class overall. I hope we see a lot of them in these early non-con games, in particular, because we know that the roster and sort of who has played will slowly kind of decrease as the season goes on and you get towards the tournament. So I hope we see a lot of everybody early on. And then really, it gets whittled down to who are the most consistent performers and everything. But I'm excited to watch some basketball. Honestly, I just love watching basketball. And I am so excited to watch some more basketball.
This is like the sad, my least favorite part of the year because we're done with WNBA and college hasn't started yet. This is the sad time for
Yeah,
all.
like this is like not a very professional opinion. I just like to watch basketball. It's just a fun time. I think these players are fun. I think that they're, great to talk to after games. It's always interesting to get their perspective. I think that the arena in Seattle is kind of like a nice size where it's not overwhelming. You get decent crowds. We would like them to be bigger. We are very firm on that. They should be bigger. Bless you. I know you muted, but he sneezed. And I think it's just going to be a really fun season. It's always fun to watch teams win. It feels like a lot of the tougher opponents are kind of on the road. So it'll be interesting to see. Like sometimes it felt like they did better on the road than at home last season. Um, a sort of odd Seattle Storm esque of the thing of them to do. But I'm just so excited to watch some basketball and just particularly Savia Sellers. I can't help myself. I think she's so fun to watch. So let's go.
yeah. We gotta speed of storm. We're gonna do our storm show, so we gotta get out of here now. But yeah, we'll be doing, the show throughout the year. I know all of us, as these two have just said, are really looking forward to getting going with women's basketball. So I'm sure we'll have a lot to talk about and see, and surely react normally about the first few games of the year and what they mean and what the minutes mean. So until we see you next time, take care of yourselves, be well, do whatever you can to make today.
Hey, Charles.
Hey, Jen.
Hey, how about them Huskies?
Ooh, purple and gold, baby.
Yeah. When are you going to watch all those away games, though?
All those away games. There are a lot of them, and I was hoping to come to Rough and Tumble because this is the home of Circling Saddle Sports. If that's okay with you.
I think that's a great idea. Hope to see you all here.